Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up over the next hour, Biden and Netanyahu spar over popular support for the conflict. Houthis say they'll stop targeting ships in the Red Sea if Israel agrees to a ceasefire. Both Joe Biden and Donald Trump win the Michigan primaries, but US President faces anger from key Arab American voters over Israel's support in Gaza war. Local campaign urges them to choose Uncommitted on the ballot. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches projects worth over $2.1 billion in Tuticorin in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. He's set to release the next installment of PM Kisan funds in Maharashtra as well. And India's Navy, along with the country's Narcotics Control Bureau, makes one of the country's largest drug hauls on the high seas, amounting to a total of 3,300 kilograms of hash, methamphetamine and morphine. Well, first up, amidst the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict, a glimmer of hope has emerged as US President Joe Biden has expressed optimism for a ceasefire by next Monday. Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has responded to President Biden's warning against Israel's hard-right government losing international backing, saying that he had consistently resisted pressure to end the Gaza war prematurely, and this stand has popular US support.
Amidst the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict, a glimmer of hope emerges among the displaced citizens on both sides after US President Joe Biden said that the ceasefire will take place by next Monday. On the other hand, Biden also warned Israel of losing global support if it keeps up with the incredibly conservative government that they have.
Well, I hope by the beginning of the weekend. The end of the weekend. At least my national security advisor tells me that we're close. We're close. It's not done yet. And my hope is by next Monday we'll have a ceasefire.
Responding to Joe Biden's warning, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he had consistently resisted pressure to end the Gaza war prematurely and that this stand has popular US support that will help Israel continue with the campaign until total victory over Hamas.
Since the beginning of the war, I have been leading a political campaign with a purpose to curb the pressure intended to end the war before its time, and on the other hand to gain support for the Israel. We have significant success in this area because today the Harvard-Harris poll is published in the United States, which shows that 82% of American public supports Israel. This means 4 out of 5 citizens in US support Israel and not Hamas. This gives us another year of strength to continue the campaign until complete victory.
Meanwhile, the US has said that it does not want tensions between Israel and Hezbollah to rise. The comments came after Hezbollah launched a volley of rockets at an Israeli aerial surveillance base.
We do not want to see either side escalate the conflict in the north, and in fact, we are going to continue to pursue a diplomatic resolution of that conflict. And while we saw the defense minister's comments, we have also taken note that repeatedly the defense minister and other officials of the government of Israel, including the prime minister, have said publicly that they would prefer the situation to be resolved diplomatically.
As aid continues to reach Gaza, Jordan's King Abdullah joined crews dropping aid into the devastated Gaza Strip from on board a Jordanian Air Force plane. King Abdullah emphasized that the humanitarian aid to Gaza must be doubled to prevent a deterioration in hunger crisis affecting over 2 million people.
Meanwhile, the military standoff between the US and Yemen's Houthis over the Red Sea continues as US launched more strikes against the armed group on Tuesday. The US Central Command shot down 3 unmanned surface vessels and 2 anti-ship cruise missiles in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen, preparing to launch towards the Red Sea. The US has been carrying out strikes against the Houthi group for months. These strikes are in response to attacks on Red Sea ships, which the US says jeopardize trade and threaten freedom of navigation. Now, the Houthis have said that they would reconsider their attacks on international shipping in the Red Sea if Israel stops its operations in the Gaza Strip. Houthi spokesperson Mohammed Abdul Salam in a statement stressed that the attacks would be reassessed if Israel-Gaza conflict is ended and humanitarian aid is made free to enter the Strip. Shifting focus now to updates related to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in the Albanian capital of Tirana on Wednesday, where he'll meet with several Balkan leaders for the Ukraine Southeast Europe summit. This is Zelensky's first visit to Albania since the start of the conflict. Zelensky has been crisscrossing the globe in recent weeks to rally support for his beleaguered country as Ukraine's armed forces face a critical shortage of ammunition and struggle to hold back Russia's military advances on the ground. Albania, a NATO member since 2009, has been a vocal supporter of Ukraine but has stayed largely quiet in public about supplying Kyiv with arms. And earlier, the Ukrainian president held talks in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and praised the kingdom's efforts in seeking a solution to end the Russia-Ukraine war. An official statement said that the two leaders discussed Kyiv's peace formula for ending the conflict, and the president thanked the Crown Prince for his valuable advice in finding ways to speed up its implementation. Zelensky and the Crown Prince discussed the content of a peace summit Switzerland has agreed to host later in the year. Saudi state news agencies said the Crown Prince affirmed the kingdom's keenness and support for all international endeavors and efforts aimed at resolving the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Key European allies and the United States have clearly said that they have had no plans to send ground troops to Ukraine after France hinted at a possibility. A Ukrainian official was seen welcoming the move, while the Kremlin was quick to warn that any such move will inevitably lead to conflict between Russia and NATO.
French president's intention of creating strategic ambiguity by openly discussing the idea of sending Western troops to Ukraine sparked confusion and irritation among some allies. Prime Minister of four Central European NATO members, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland and Slovakia, swiftly distanced themselves, saying send all the weapons, money and logistical help, but this conflict does not have a military solution.
Russia will be on the same border where it is now, but there will be tens of thousands more dead people. Yes, those who talk about the need to send soldiers to the territory of Ukraine are aware that without foreign military assistance, Ukraine can never win this war.
I think that we should not speculate today about the future, that circumstances can occur that will change this stance. Today we should concentrate, just as the Polish and Czech governments are doing, on supporting Ukraine's war effort.
U.S. National Security spokesperson John Kirby too echoed the similar sentiments.
Well, it's a sovereign decision that every NATO ally would have to make for themselves. President Biden has been crystal clear since the beginning of this conflict. There will be no U.S. troops on the ground in a combat role there in Ukraine.
Besides French officials, the only one that came to Macron's rescue was Dutch defense chief, who said French president's idea was to show that all options were on the table, though he did not think a deployment was likely soon.
I think a cry from Macron and the other 20 nations to do more. Because we see that they are lacking more ammunition and more material, so we have to provide them with it. And the only ones who can do it are the partners that are in the Western world. So yes, I understand his outcry, and I think we have to fulfill part of his needs.
A senior Ukrainian official on Tuesday welcomed talks of European nations sending troops to Ukraine, but the Kremlin said a conflict between Russia and NATO would become inevitable if European members of the alliance send in troops to fight. Bureau Report, DD India.
Completely banning the import of grain from Ukraine. In fact, he said he cannot rule out widening a national ban rather than when this matter is concerned. We will get you that report because imports of Ukrainian grains, if the European Union does not act to protect the bloc's markets. Poland last year extended a ban on Ukraine grain imports. Tusk made the remarks during a visit to Prague as thousands of Polish farmers took to the streets, escalating a protest against food imports from Ukraine and EU green rules. Thousands of farmers marched through the Polish capital before reaching the Prime Minister's office. Polish farmers protested in Warsaw, escalating their month-long strike that started early February against food imports from Ukraine and EU regulations intended to curtail climate change. Polish farmers began a series of protests throughout the country earlier this month, which included a near-total blockade of all Ukrainian border crossings, as well as disruptions at ports and on roads nationwide. And Swedish soldiers were ready to contribute to NATO after Hungary's parliament approved Sweden's accession on Monday. Swedish soldiers conducted a warfare exercise near Stockholm, where soldiers from the Life Guard regiment said that they were ready to contribute and strengthen the military capacity of NATO. In recent decades, Sweden has increased cooperation with NATO and contributing to cooperations in places such as Afghanistan. Its membership is set to simplify defense planning and cooperation on the alliance's northern flank. And Sweden's also increasing military spending and should reach NATO's threshold of 2% of GDP this year. Still to come on DD India News Hour. A raging Texas wildfire crosses over to Oklahoma as it forces shutdown of a facility which assembles and disassembles America's nuclear arsenal. Japan begins the fourth release of Fukushima nuclear power plant's treated radioactive water into the sea. And South Korea's lowest fertility rate in the world plunges further in 2023 despite the government's incentives for couples to have more babies.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump emerged victorious in the Michigan primaries held on Tuesday, further cementing the anticipation of a rematch between the two political heavyweights. Biden secured a win over Minnesota Representative Dean Phillips, his primary opponent of significance. However, Democrats closely monitored the outcome of the uncommitted vote, recognizing Michigan as a focal point for dissatisfied members within Biden's coalition, pivotal in securing his triumph in the state and nationwide in 2020. Notably, the number of uncommitted votes exceeded the 10,000 threshold, which was Donald Trump's winning margin in Michigan in 2016. The numbers also surpassing the organizers' target for this year's protest movement. Donald Trump, on the other hand, won the state's Republican presidential primary by a large margin, strengthening his grip on the party's White House nomination as Nikki Haley, his last remaining rival, came in a distant second. As for Nikki Haley, well, she took aim at Donald Trump 1 week before Colorado's presidential primary election, saying she'd been a better candidate against Biden. Nikki also reminded her supporters of a recent comment by Donald Trump encouraging Russia's President Vladimir Putin to invade United States allies.
Donald Trump got on stage, went off his teleprompter, and said that he would actually encourage Putin to invade our allies. Now think about what that means. That means Donald Trump's going to side with a tyrant who kills his political opponents. That means Donald Trump is going to side with a thug where 500,000 people have died or been wounded because of Russia invading Ukraine. That means Donald Trump is going to side with a madman who arrests American journalists and holds them hostage. Putin's made no bones about the fact that he wants to destroy America. And Donald Trump's going to choose him over our allies who stood with us after 9/11?
A small group of migrants were seen crossing the Rio Grande River to enter the United States on Tuesday at the U.S.-Mexico border in Eagle Pass, Texas. Eagle Pass has become a flashpoint in a dispute between the White House and Texas governor to deal with illegal immigration. Texas has deployed National Guard troops to the border and set up floating buoy barriers to deter migrant crossings, and this has led to legal and political disputes with the Biden administration. The Republican governor of Texas in February announced plans to build a military base camp near the U.S.-Mexico border to stop illegal immigration. Mexico will impose tariffs on steel if the United States enacts such measures first. Economy Minister Raquel Buenrostro said in a news conference that U.S. calls to impose tariffs on steel imports from Mexico have been politically motivated and are not good for commerce. Mexico's steel chamber in a recent statement said steel export to the U.S. had not seen major variation since 2020 and vowed cooperation between the neighboring nations to avoid tariffs. The U.S. lifted tariffs on Mexican steel in 2019, warning they could be reinstated to protect U.S. industry if shipments from Mexico surge beyond a certain level. The U.S. has also said more transparency is needed regarding the origins of steel and aluminum products Mexico has been exporting. Amid protests and mass resignations by trainee doctors, South Korea on Wednesday asked military hospitals to fill the gaps in the health sector and provide treatment to civilian patients. South Korea's civilian hospitals are suffering disruptions in providing services to the people as thousands of trainee doctors are protesting the government's move to increase medical seats. And DD India's Chris Gilbert has got this report from Tokyo.
Well, the pressure is certainly mounting on Korea's health system, particularly on the front lines inside the hospitals, which are obviously facing drastic staff shortages. Now they are turning patients away. There are reports that emergency room beds are running out, that hospitals are entering what they call red alert when these beds start to become scarce, and also that nurses are now being requested to fill the shoes of doctors, to be given the legal protections or the legal entitlement to do that kind of work. There is reportedly some concern amongst this pool of nurses that they may be open or exposing themselves to legal action, to malpractice suits, which is interestingly one of the reasons why these doctors are resigning and walking out in the first place. One of their complaints is how legally vulnerable they are as well as their pay, and the government plans to, boost 2,000 more students every year into medical schools without addressing these trainees, doctors' concerns first. Of course, these calls for better conditions, for better pay are falling on unsympathetic ears with the government at the moment. They have taken action, filed complaints against 5 doctors who are members of the doctors' lobby in Korea. They have hired a prosecutor to the Health Ministry to give advice, and they have effectively given an ultimatum for all doctors and trainee doctors to return to their places of employment by the end of Thursday, by the end of February. And if they do so, they will not face any punitive action. If they fail to do this, then the government says it'll be unavoidable. These doctors will potentially face having their medical licenses suspended or even facing legal action. So this is all likely to come to a head at the end of play on Thursday. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo reporting for DD India.
South Korea and the United States will begin their annual spring military drills next week, with a focus on heading off North Korea's any potential use of nuclear weapons. The Freedom Shield exercises set from the 4th to the 14th of March have come as North Korea continues to test various missiles and other weapon systems and develop its nuclear capabilities. The exercise will be the first since Pyongyang scrapped the 2018 Inter-Korean Military Pact in November. At a press briefing, US and South Korean military officials said the drills will be tough and realistic and will be focused on countering North Korea's nuclear operations. Tokyo Electric Power Company and the Japanese government began the 4th discharge of radioactive treated wastewater from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean on Wednesday. As in the previous rounds, Tokyo Electric Power Company, that is TEPCO, will discharge 7,800 tons of treated water over about 17 days, having confirmed that the radioactivity level of the latest batch of water meets the standards set by the government and the utility. According to TEPCO, no abnormal tritium levels have been detected in nearby waters from the previous 3 discharges. The wastewater release first began in August last year, despite opposition from countries including China. Now, there's simmering tension in Guinea after at least 2 people were shot dead during clashes between protesters and security forces. This comes amidst a general strike against the ruling military government for suppressing opposing views in the West African nation. DD India's correspondent Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
A general strike began in Guinea's capital, Conakry, on Monday. Shops, schools and markets were shut in protest against media censorship in the country. 2 years ago, the military government banned protests and arrested many opposition leaders, journalists and civil society members. A confederation of unions in Guinea called for the general strike to demand the release of the journalists and media activists who were arrested in January. But Monday's strike took a different turn when the protesters blocked roads, which led to sporadic clashes with security forces. 2 young men were shot and killed in the process. Tension had been building in Guinea since Friday after the Secretary General of the Union of Press Professionals of Guinea was sentenced to 6 months in prison. He was arrested in January for taking part in an unauthorized protest against the military government. Meanwhile, last week, the military dissolved the transitional government, which was set up in 2022 to return the country to civilian rule. The junta leader, General Mamadi Doumbouya, has not given reasons for dissolving the transitional government. Nabil Ahmed Rufai in Accra, Ghana, reporting for DD India.
A massive wildfire crossed from Texas into Oklahoma in the U.S., where it prompted evacuations as the wildfire blazed through thousands of acres in a mere 28 hours since igniting on Tuesday. As of Tuesday evening, the Smokehouse Creek fire ranks as the 5th largest wildfire in Texas history, surpassing the total area burned by all fires in the state last year. Evacuation orders are in effect for several communities, including Moore and Potter counties and parts of Roberts County near the Oklahoma border. In eastern Texas, the Mills Creek and San Jacinto fires continue to rage, both uncontained. Meanwhile, the main facility that assembles and disassembles America's nuclear arsenal shut down its operations on Tuesday night as fires raged on out of control. New York skyline showed the city blanketed in fog as unpredictable weather swept through the United States. Forecasters predict that some U.S. residents will switch from Bermuda shorts to snow pants or vice versa in less than 24 hours due to a heat wave in the Middle Plains and South. This week's hot wave comes amid other extreme weather in the U.S., including California's atmospheric river storms and historic low ice cover on the Great Lakes. It's difficult to attribute any particular weather pattern to human-caused climate change. Residents were evacuated on boats from the flooded city of northwestern Bolivia after the Aca River burst its banks. An extraordinary flood of the river, which flows between Bolivia and Brazil, left a large part of the city of Cobija submerged in water, forcing the evacuation of hundreds of families from their homes. Videos showed boats being used to reach residents carrying their belongings and later moving to shelters. Ministers and international leaders from the G20 held a meeting in Brazil with President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, putting inequality and poverty as well as climate change at the top of the agenda. Brazil's Environment Minister Marina Silva Brazil stressed the need to tackle climate change to avoid further global instability in the celebration of 200 years of diplomatic relations with the United States. Brazilian President Lula Inácio da Silva pushed to give developing nations of the Global South a wider platform in G20 meetings during Brazil's presidency. South Korea's fertility rate, already the world's lowest, dropped to a fresh record low in 2023, defying the billions of dollars spent by the country to try to reverse the trend as the population shrank for a fourth straight year. The average number of expected babies for a South Korean woman during her reproductive life fell to a record low of 0.72 from 0.78 in 2022, data from Statistics Korea showed on Wednesday. Now, this is far below the rate of 2.1% women need for a steady population and well behind the rate of 1.24 in 2015, when concerns about issues such as cost of housing and education were lower. South Korea has previously projected its fertility rate is likely to fall further to 0.68% in 2024. Capital Seoul, which has the country's highest housing costs, had the lowest fertility rate in 0.55 last year. Let's now take a look at some of the other stories that have been making news across the world as well. Mexico's most dangerous active volcano, Popocatépetl, spewed massive columns of ash and smoke on Tuesday. The country's National Center for Disaster Prevention reported that it has observed over 77 discharges from the volcano, accompanied by water vapor, volcanic gases and ash. The authorities have also issued a yellow alert in the nearby areas. In Australia, tens of thousands of residents in southeast were told to evacuate on Wednesday due to an intense heat wave that the authorities said could further spread a massive bushfire in Victoria State, which faces its worst conditions in 4 years. Extreme fire ratings have been issued for large parts of Victoria, with the Wimmera region in the west given a catastrophic ranking, the top warning level. In Taiwan, a group of volunteers along with school children gathered to clean the mess caused due to the Lantern Festival. They gathered the debris and took it to be disposed of safely. Every year, on the cusp of spring, hundreds of lanterns float into the skies around a small town in northern Taiwan. It's a spectacular light show that is one of the island's top tourist draws. And still to come on DD India News Hour, India marks National Science Day with the government lauding the nation's indigenous space program. Indian scientists announced they've sequenced genome of 10,000 citizens, which can lead to genes-based remedies for several ailments. And India's Dibrugarh airport gets upgraded navigation system for better safety.
In a world that that never stops, where information shapes our reality. One app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy, and before we go any further, another look at our top stories. Biden's Netanyahu spar over popular support for the conflict. Houthis say they'll stop targeting ships in the Red Sea if Israel agrees to a ceasefire. Both Joe Biden and Donald Trump win the Michigan primaries, but the US president faces anger from key Arab American voters over Israel's support in Gaza war. Local campaign urges them to choose uncommitted on the ballot. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches projects worth over $2.1 billion in the Tuticorin region of the southern state of Tamil Nadu. He's set to release the next installment of PM Kisan funds in Maharashtra as well. And the Indian Navy, along with the country's Narcotics Control Bureau, make one of India's largest drug haul on the high seas, amounting to a total of 3,300 kgs of hash, methamphetamine and morphine. Now, on the second day of his three states visit, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Tuticorin, Tamil Nadu on Wednesday. He started the visit by visiting an exhibition reviewing all the developmental projects. Later at the public program in Tuticorin, the Prime Minister laid the foundation stone of Outer Harbour Container Terminal at V.O. Chidambaram Port. The project aims to leverage India's long coastline and favourable geographic location and strengthen India's competitiveness in global trade arena. And the PM also inaugurated various other projects aimed at making the V.O. Chidambaram Port as the first green hydrogen hub port of the country. These projects include desalination plant, hydrogen production and bunkering facility. Prime Minister launched India's first indigenous green hydrogen fuel cell inland waterway vessel under Harit Nauka initiative. The PM also dedicated tourist facilities in 75 lighthouses across 10 states and union territories during the program. He also dedicated several roads and rail projects to the nation. And addressing the gathering, the PM said Tamil Nadu is writing a new chapter of progress in Tuticorin.
बड़े दुख के साथ सत्य कड़वा होता है, लेकिन सत्य जरूरी भी होता है। मैं सीधा सीधा आरोप लगाना चाहता हूं यूपीए सरकार पर। ये सारे जो प्रोजेक्ट मैं आज लेके आया हूं, ये दशकों से यहां के लोगों की मांग थी। आज जो यहां सत्ता में बैठे हैं, वे लोग उस समय दिल्ली में बैठे थे, सरकार चलाते थे, ये डिपार्टमेंट चलाते थे, लेकिन उनको आपके विकास की परवाह नहीं थी।
And in Kulasegarapattinam, Prime Minister, that is in Tuticorin itself, the Prime Minister also laid the foundation stone for ISRO's second spaceport launch complex. ISRO's chief S. Somnath, while speaking to DD India, said the advantage of the launching pad is its direct access to southward trajectories, reducing fuel consumption.
Today, Honorable Prime Minister has laid a foundation stone and we will be building this station with a lot of infrastructure for assembly of the rocket, the radars, the ground infrastructure for preparation of the rocket. This is not only meant for small satellite that launch vehicle that ISRO has developed, but also for private companies, satellite rockets which they are going to launch, that also can be launched from there. So the whole construction activity will take approximately 2 years. So we are hoping that launches can happen maybe at the end of 2 years. So the advantage of this Kulasegara is that we can launch the rockets directly southward, saving fuel and also increasing payload. And as many as 24 launches in a year we can happen with this location as well as rocket. So we are hoping that this will become a very important location for the country. And I understand there is also other industries or ecosystem also coming around this site. So all the best for the whole of Kulasegara, and we are very committed to make it happen.
Now, in a successful coordinated operation at sea, the Indian Navy and the Narcotics Control Bureau on Tuesday seized around 3,300 kgs of drugs from a ship near Gujarat's Porbandar, making it by far the largest in terms of quantity in recent times. This seizure was possible through the collaborative efforts of the Indian Navy's mission-deployed assets with the NCB. The contraband, along with the apprehended boat and crew, have been handed over to the law enforcement agencies at an Indian port. The coordinated response of the Indian Navy with law enforcement agencies is reflective of their resolute stance against narcotics trafficking in India's maritime neighborhood.
For the first time, the NCB team is going into the sea along with the sister agencies like Indian Navy and Coast Guard. So we are following a zero tolerance approach against drugs. It is a difficult task, but it has to be done in a sustained manner. इस केस में हमारी 3 एजेंसीज ATS, नेवी और NCB ने काम किया, but there have been other cases where DRI, कस्टम्स के साथ हम लोगों ने काम किया, स्टेट पुलिस के साथ काम किया.
And India's Home Minister Amit Shah has termed the drug bust to be a big success. In a post on X, he said, and I quote, "Pursuing PM Narendra Modi ji's vision of a drug-free Bharat, our agencies today achieved the grand success of making the biggest offshore seizure of drugs in the nation. The historic success is a testament to our government's unwavering commitment to making our nation drug-free. On this occasion, I congratulate the NCB, the Navy and the Gujarat Police." The India-Germany High Defence Committee meeting was held in Berlin on Tuesday. Indian Defence Secretary and his German counterpart co-chaired the meeting. Both sides discussed a range of bilateral security and defence issues with a focus on developing the defence cooperation as a key pillar of Indo-German strategic partnership. They exchanged views on the regional security situation, discussed likely joint exercises with Germany in the Indo-Pacific and deliberated upon potential defence industrial projects and proposals. India's President Draupadi Murmu commended the women power in today's times and said that our daughters are making progress at a fast pace. President Murmu, who is on a 4-day visit to the eastern states of Jharkhand and Odisha from Wednesday, was addressing the third convocation of the Central University of Jharkhand in Ranchi.
स्वर्ण पदक प्राप्त कर रहे विद्यार्थियों में हमारी बेटियों की संख्या लगभग 50% है. स्वर्ण पदक प्राप्त करने वाले बेटियों को मैं विशेष रूप से शुभाशीष देती हूँ. बेटियाँ सदियों से बहुत दिनों से पीछे रह गए थे, लेकिन आज बेटियाँ भी की प्रगति से बहुत द्रुत गति से और आगे जा रही.
India's Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary is on an official visit to Bangladesh. On his arrival, he called on Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Both discussed issues of mutual interest and furthering avenues of defence cooperation between the two nations. Earlier, during his visit, he also paid tribute to the members of the Bangladesh Armed Forces who made the supreme sacrifice during the Liberation War of 1971 by laying a wreath at the War Memorial and Bangabandhu Memorial Museum. He also called upon the chiefs of the Army, Navy and Air Force as well as the PSOs of Air Force Division. Now, as India observes National Science Day across the country today, Science and Technology Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh underlined the milestones set by the country in the field of science and innovation. While addressing an event in the national capital, Science and Technology Minister lauded India's indigenous space program, which falls in line with the theme of this year's National Science Day.
In the same vein as was also being underlined and being stressed upon by Dr. Kalai Selvi, the indigenous technologies, and most of them are actually indigenous. Our Chandrayaan mission, our Aditya mission, they're not only from nut bolt, but even the team is indigenous. And many of them, incidentally and happily so, headed by women scientists. It's not only now confined to the research alone. We are hugely contributing to the economy of this country. So gone are the days when the science labs were considered only to be, some dingy elements. The other day, I only suggested, and I think we'll follow it up in a larger way in the other institutes also. I said we should have more and more of interactive programs with the stakeholders.
Now, India observes National Science Day on the 28th February each year to honor the great Indian physicist C.V. Raman. This year, the theme of National Science Day is promoting indigenous technologies for Viksit Bharat, that is a developed India. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya reports.
In the realm of scientific discovery, there are those luminaries whose contributions transcend time, shaping the very fabric of our understanding. On National Science Day, we pay homage to one such luminary, Sir C.V. Raman. A visionary scientist and a beacon of inspiration, C.V. Raman altered the course of science with his groundbreaking discovery, the Raman effect. Every year since 1987, National Science Day is celebrated on the 28th of February to honor the great Indian physicist Sir C.V. Raman, who won the Nobel Prize for Physics. It was on this day in 1928 his discovery of the Raman effect came to light. This year, the theme of National Science Day is promoting indigenous technologies for Viksit Bharat.
This event is celebrated to commemorate the discovery, or rather the announcement of the discovery of Raman effect on 28th February in 1928. Sir C.V. Raman, who discovered this new type of radiation, is also called as Raman effect, Raman scattering, and so on and so forth. Till date, it remains one of the most significant scientific discoveries ever made in India. And this year's theme is Viksit Bharat at 2047.
The Raman effect revolutionized spectroscopy, empowering scientists to probe the intricate nature of matter with unparalleled precision. Raman spectroscopy became a cornerstone in fields ranging from chemistry and physics to biology and material science. But beyond his scientific achievements, C.V. Raman embodied the spirit of curiosity, perseverance, and national pride. His relentless pursuit of knowledge serves as a beacon of hope, inspiring generations to pursue their passions and push the boundaries of human understanding. As India commemorates National Science Day, let us not only celebrate the accomplishments of C.V. Raman, but also reaffirm our commitment to fostering a culture of scientific inquiry and innovation. Happy National Science Day. Tapas Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
And on National Science Day, Prime Minister Modi has extended his greetings to the nation and reiterated his government's commitment of working to encourage research and innovation amongst the youth. In a post on X, the PM wrote, and I quote, "Greetings on National Science Day. Our government is continuously working to encourage research and innovation among the youth. This is important to realize our dream of a Viksit Bharat." Let's now get you a quick look at some of the other reports that will be coming in from around the country. Indian scientists on Tuesday announced that they have sequenced genomes of 10,000 citizens from diverse communities to create a database. The Union Science and Technology Minister, Jitendra Singh, termed it as a pivotal moment for science in India. He said that this achievement will lead to genetic-based remedies besides giving a boost to public health system in India. India's Ministry of Education will begin Mera Pehla Vote Desh Ke Liye or My First Vote for the Country campaign from Wednesday. Activities under the drive will go on till the 6th of March with the aim to ensure universal enlightened participation of youth in elections. The initiative will witness both on-ground physical events and online competitions on the MyGov platform. The Indian government aims for a large voter turnout in the upcoming general elections through this scheme. India's Dibrugarh airport in the northeast has got an upgraded navigation system for better safety. The airport completes the successful setup and calibration of a Doppler very high frequency omni range system. The installation and calibration of the DVOR at Dibrugarh airport marks a critical milestone in enhancing navigation capabilities for incoming and outgoing flights. And still to come on DD India News Hour, US President Joe Biden urges the top 4 Congress leaders to take action to prevent a potential government shutdown. Ahead of tonight's FA Cup tie against Southampton, 3 key Liverpool players expected to return for the Reds. And preparations are underway to organize the 4th International Laureates and Leaders for Children Summit in Nepal's Lumbini.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Let's now get to some business updates as well. India's Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal will participate in the World Trade Organization's 13th Ministerial Conference on Wednesday. India's Trade Minister is expected to be one of the main players at the talks, where delegates are seeking deals on fisheries and digital trade tariffs. Discussions on negotiations on fishery subsidies, subsidies on overcapacity and overfishing are expected.
Been looking at, and key issues for India is of course fisheries subsidies agreement, which is being negotiated now. So there was already a partial agreement reached in the last ministerial in 2022, but what we are now discussing are subsidies for overcapacity and overfishing. So for India there are key considerations, and we know the government of India is fighting on these.
Earlier, India made a strong case for a permanent solution to the public stock holding of PSH at the ongoing WTO Ministerial Conference. PSH refers to the practice of governments holding stocks of essential commodities for food security purposes. India argued that resolving PSH, a pending issue for 11 years, is crucial for achieving food security and improving the livelihoods of millions residing in the developing nations. Highlighting the support from over 80 countries representing more than half the world's population for their proposed PSH, India urged the WTO to address this imbalance and ensure a level playing field for resource-poor farmers. Indian Minister for Information and Broadcasting Anurag Singh Thakur on Wednesday attended the National Economic Conclave hosted by the Interactive Forum on the Indian Economy. The event aimed to delve into the intricacies of PM Modi's vision, Bharat, and promised to be an insightful exploration of the challenges and opportunities facing India's economic landscape. Aimed at promoting the UAE-India Economic Partnership, the UAE-India SEPA Council, in collaboration with the Confederation of Indian Industry, held a business roundtable on Wednesday. Over 20 participants from diverse sectors such as logistics, automotives, agriculture and healthcare attended the roundtable. It provided a valuable platform for business owners to discuss opportunities to benefit from the UAE-India Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or the SEPA, and the bilateral strategic partnership more broadly. US President Joe Biden has urged the top 4 leaders of the Congress on Tuesday to take swift action to prevent a potential government shutdown and called for the passage of emergency aid for Ukraine and Israel. Joe Biden said that the US needs to find a solution to fund the government while providing aid to Ukraine and avoiding an economically damaging government shutdown. The US President made the comments during a meeting with leading Democrats and Republicans in the Oval Office of the White House. Time now to get you some sporting action with my colleague Deepika.
Thanks and good afternoon, Gautam. Let's quickly bring our viewers a quick update on what's happening in the world of soccer first. Well, manager Jurgen Klopp said injury-hit Liverpool need a miracle with several prominent players in doubt for Wednesday's FA Cup fifth-round tie against Southampton. Midfielder Ryan, injured during Sunday's League Cup finale victory over Chelsea, is the latest player from the Premier League leaders to be sidelined for this week's clash. Klopp said forwards Mohamed Salah and Darwin, who missed the League Cup finale, are also not a certainty for Wednesday's match. Now, the German credited the depth of the squad and its young talents for the way the team has performed this season, including the League Cup triumph for Liverpool.
So we need miracles with a few players. So that's why I don't want to rule out for too long. But it's touch and go with a lot of players still, with the boys who are not available for the weekend, for the final. This, like Darwin, Mo, Dom, we have to see what they can do today. Wataru got a proper knock as well. There we have to see as well. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's much improved since Sunday, but that's how it is.
On to tennis now. World number 4 Daniil Medvedev downed Kazakhstan's Alexander Shevchenko by 6-3 and 7-5 on his return from a foot injury at Dubai Open. Despite seeing his serve broken in each set, the 2021 US Open winner and defending Dubai champion powered past Shevchenko, winning 4 games in a row at 3-5 in the second set to secure victory in under 90 minutes. The first round match at the ATP 500 event was Medvedev's first since his Australian Open finale loss to Jannik Sinner last month. The 28-year-old player, who's won 20 titles, improved to a 7-1 to begin the 2024 season. Medvedev has withdrawn from matches in Rotterdam and Doha as well due to foot injury. Now in cricket, Indian team all-rounder Ravindra Jadeja had his big fanboy moment in Ranchi as he posed outside former captain MS Dhoni's house as a fan and shared photos on social media. Following India's famous victory over England in a tense game with 5-wicket margin, Jadeja made most of Indian cricket teams stay and posed in front of the gates. Now both the players enjoy a special equation with each other. Jadeja made his debut for India under MS Dhoni and spent a lot of time with him during the Indian Premier League season as well. Jadeja has been a key player for Chennai Super Kings under MS Dhoni and has played a huge role in their success over the years. Jadeja and MS Dhoni will again reunite for the IPL 2024 season. The inaugural edition of Bharat Sports Science Conclave took place on Wednesday in New Delhi. Many esteemed athletes and sports science experts explored various ways for integrating sports science and also enhancing performance during the event. Tokyo Olympic gold medalist Neeraj Chopra, India's first individual Olympics gold medalist Abhinav Bindra, and 2003 World Championship bronze winner Anju Bobby George were also present at the event, which is being organized by Transmedia University in collaboration with the National Centre of Sports Science and Research and the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. Now, the event focused on realizing the objectives and goals of Vision Olympics 2036. Speaking on the occasion, Union Minister Anurag Singh Thakur said that the government is making huge efforts to create an ecosystem that aids the sportsperson to become world champions. Every year, more than 17,000 players participate across various international sporting events.
All of you present here must be aware of the efforts being put in by the government to support our sportsperson and create an ecosystem that aids our athletes in becoming world champions. We are focused on multi-pronged development, building multi-purpose modern infrastructure across the country. In the last 10 years, we have spent about 3,000 crore rupees on 300 such sports infrastructure, directly supporting our athletes through the top scheme. Every year, we have more than 17,000 plus upcoming players who participate on that, and I'm glad to say here many of them have participated in the Commonwealth Games, Asian Games and the Olympics as well and won the medal for India.
And that was a quick wrap from the world of sports. Back to Gautam.
Thanks a lot, Deepika. Wasn't there speculation on that Jadeja story that he had a fanboy movement outside Dhoni's house in Ranchi that he might take over from Dhoni as far as the Chennai team is concerned?
Let's see, but for as of now, he remains the fan, the biggest, I think, for MS Dhoni.
Yeah, MS Dhoni is not going anywhere right now. So, okay, now the 4th International Laureates and Leaders for Children Summit to take place in Lumbini, Nepal. The summit is to start from the 10th of March and conclude on the 12th in the Lumbini province of that country. It's a mid-southwestern region of Nepal. The summit will draw in 10 Nobel laureates from different parts of the world, and the event will be held to highlight and promote children's prosperity and peace, showcasing the spirituality of Buddhism. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts about the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, as well as Instagram. We'll be back with more news and updates as they break here on DD India. For the moment, it's me, Gautam Roy, thanking all of you on behalf of my team, and keep watching DD India for all the latest.